It's a big thing because explaining your story, your business, and who you are clearly and positioning yourself in such a way that people want to come to you for whatever you're selling is the most important thing, probably more so than website design or buying ads or anything like that. If people can't figure out like who you are and what you're selling, then you're not going to be able to make many sales.
So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And we'll start there. You were a chef and then moved into a copywriter. So just curious, give us, a little background on that. How does someone go from being a chef and then getting inspired enough to move into copywriting and following your own project?
Yeah, so it was so like I said, I was in a PhD program in Iowa and I really didn't like that. So then while I was there, I was thinking, oh, what have my favorite jobs been? Because I've been working various jobs since I was 15. And I thought, well, I've always loved cooking. So I just moved back to San Diego and started doing that for a living. And after a few years of that, I got really burnt out from basically dealing with bad owners, bad management, and the wages of a cook typically are such that you will never have equity in a restaurant unless you find an investor, somebody outside of yourself, or you're independently wealthy, which I'm not. So I was getting up to here with it, and that's when my sister, who's a copywriter, said, "Hey, you know what? You've always been a good writer. Why don't you give this a try? Write a little copy for my company, see if they like it, and we can go from there." And so I wrote a sample and they liked it. And that was at the end of 2019. And just ever since then, I've left restaurants and just have been dedicating myself to copywriting. And it was good timing. I'm glad I got out of restaurants before 2020. And I
Yeah.
continue to be happy doing what I'm doing. So it's going well.
Samantha, can you take us back a step here for those folks out there that may not know what copywriting is? Because when Murray actually ran it by me, I had to look it up. And then once I, looked it up, I was like, oh, this totally makes sense because you look at like a good, well done website and in the way that words are specifically used. And I was like, okay, I get it. But I had no idea it even existed. Could you maybe explain and tell us what is the field of copywriting? Because we're not talking about like what lawyers do where it's a copyright with an R. We're talking about actual writing, right?
Correct. Yes. It is somewhat niche unless you work in marketing. A lot of people aren't really quite aware of it. So, a copywriter does basically all of the writing that you're doing in marketing, whether it be content for a blog post or, the script on a commercial or the copy on a website, the sales page that explains a product. Anything there, if it's professionally done, has been done by a copywriter. And like you said, you can see kind of the differences in people who try to do it for themselves or people who outsource it to a professional or people who sometimes occasionally are just talented even though that they're not necessarily copywriters. But it's a big thing because explaining your story, your business, and who you are clearly and positioning yourself in such a way that people want to come to you for whatever you're selling is the most important thing, probably more so than website design or buying ads or anything like that. If people can't figure out like who you are and what you're selling, then you're not going to be able to make many sales.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Murray, I said I
Yeah.
wasn't going to talk as much tonight. So back
No,
to you.
I was super excited to have you on the show, and I'm really curious to hear. It sounds like you'd done some homework and went out there and looked at our websites and have some feedback for us. I do enjoy writing. I find copywriting very, very interesting. Clearly, I'm not trained, and we'll probably get into that when you explain what was good and bad about our websites. But um, overall, I think copywriting is it's a great skill. I'm curious, did you go through any kind of professional training, or maybe what is some advice you'd have for someone like me who's interested in it, and if nothing else, just trying to set up my own websites?
Yeah, so I didn't go through any professional training per se. I had a pretty strong technical writing background after an undergraduate in philosophy and then getting the PhD in philosophy. So My grammar and like the technical aspects of my writing are pretty good. I'm pretty strong in that already. But other than that, it was really just reading books. I could definitely recommend books to you guys. And the one that I think is the most important that I wanted to share with you is called Building a Story Brand. Have you guys heard this book?
I'm
I have
not.
not. Who's
Okay.
the author?
It's got it right here. Donald Miller. I don't know if you can see it
Okay.
there. Oh, it's backwards in mine. But anyway.
We got it. We'll put a link. We'll put a link in the description below, and we'll definitely check it out. That's part
Okay.
of our homework, Murray. Season
There
There
we
you
two. It's
go.
go.
getting busy
All
now.
right.
There's the homework. So there are a bunch of different books on copywriting and marketing in general, but what I like about building a story brand is it really breaks it down so anybody can understand it because we all understand what a story is. And building a story brand points out to you that almost all stories have the same component. They have a main character, the character has a problem, the character finds a guide who gives that person a solution. Then the guide says, "Here you go. You have a solution. Take action." The character takes action with the solution and reaches success, and they avoid failures. Um, and if you think about that in almost any story ever, any movie, any book, um, it has all of those components. And then you do want to keep those components when you're copywriting, writing about your business, explaining yourself to people.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I can understand where you're coming from on a couple of things. I've been an attorney my entire career. I still am. I went through some burnout, and it was a job that I love, but after almost 10 years, it got really overwhelming. So I'm looking at this. That's kind of what the dumpster fire project's about. I'm looking at starting my own company, and I have no clue how to do any of this stuff. So one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on tonight, and we just kind of gave a clue there about you giving us homework, but to start off, maybe we can get into this now, Murray. Samantha, you actually looked at both of our websites, and boy, I don't mind taking some constructive criticism here, but let's hear it. How bad is it? How much
Um,
work do we need to do?
well, yeah, so both of you, you guys have um, different things to work on, and both generally it is just clarifying the story. Um, Eric, for your website, I think it looks really good. The design's really nice. It's generally you generally have a pretty thorough and clear explanation of your story. The one thing that I would say on yours,
Let me
just
have it. Don't hold
just
back. Let's hear it.
okay, yeah, like I said, I have detailed notes for you about like each of the
Okay.
pages,
Not gonna
but
embarrass you too bad. All right.
yeah, it's not too bad at all. I mean, both of you
Yeah.
honestly did a great job for not like having any copywriting experience.
All right.
But the thing about your story in your about you section is you, I think, could do a little bit more to position yourself as the guide in the story rather than the hero
Hmm.
because you're mentioning kind of your journey and
Yeah.
your
You can tell who wrote it, huh?
yeah, well, but that's a
Makes
really,
sense.
really
Yeah.
common thing that people
Yeah.
do. You know, they say, "This is my story," and we all
Yeah.
think of ourselves as the hero in our own
That's a good
stories.
point.
But if you're selling yourself as an expert, as an educator and an advocate for law enforcement and prosecutors, then you want to say, "I went through." You can say, "I went through this. This is why I have a background. This is why I'm able to speak to you guys." But you want to leave space for those people to come in and be the hero of the story and you
I
to be
like
the
it.
guide.
I feel
So,
like I've heard this advice before actually. This actually sounds right. And now that you're mentioning it to me, it's like, yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm not as important as I thought, Murray. But
well,
that's
you
really good advice. So
yeah.
what advice would you give me on obviously that book that you mentioned, I can check that out, but what is something that someone like me can do? Especially I have a background in, telling stories is kind of what you do when you do a trial. What are some resources I could go to maybe get better at trying to figure out how to craft that story?
Honestly, I think that story brand book is the best resource I've seen hands down.
Nice.
Yeah, because it just lays it out really, really clearly. It's 7 steps. If you hit all 7, then you know you've done it. Um, Other than that, also for copywriting, a huge, huge component is just research. Look at, I've never seen a website like yours. I've done a little bit of work in the law space, but not a ton. And most people are kind of selling the same thing over and over again. And you're definitely
Hmm.
coming from a unique perspective. But maybe just taking a look. I'm sure there are other lawyers slash educators that you're aware of, maybe? Or are
There's a
you
few.
pretty unique in this
It's a
space?
it's pretty unique in the fact that I'm an attorney that's specifically doing, very niche down to prosecutors and law enforcement. Usually you'll see like a consulting company that will be like ex police officers, and maybe they'll hire an attorney to do some training. So I think I'm pretty unique in the fact that I've been a prosecutor my whole career, and I'm trying to do things a little bit differently than most of the other companies. I have a different training style, and I don't think it's typically a lawyer that starts a business like that. I'm sure there's a few, but I would like to think it's not the norm for sure.
Right. And I definitely think that, especially in the talking about the law enforcement space right now, I can see why you wouldn't want to hit too hard on how kind of chaotic
Hmm.
everything is about that. But I think that you could mention more that you are an advocate as well as an educator, because I
Hmm.
think there are a lot of people who, if you're an educator of anything, you don't want to, as a student, you don't want somebody who's going to be like, I know what's right and I'm going to tell you, and kind of
Sure.
come down on them in a certain way. I think you could definitely say, listen, because of my background, I'm an advocate for you guys. I'm working for you and I know your challenges, I know your problems. That's why I'm a good guide for you. But you guys are the heroes because you guys are the ones out there doing the work every day.
I like it. I can do that. All right. You got me sold, Samantha. Good stuff. All right,
Nice.
Murray's turn. All
So
right, how
so
bad did
real
Murray
quick
suck?
though, there is one other great resource you could reach out to if you need help, Eric. That is
I know.
Samantha. She has a
Clearly.
Oh,
website.
that's right. That's me.
So
Yeah,
now would
maybe
be a
now's
good
a good
time.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good
Now's a good
time.
time.
All
Go ahead and
right.
tell them where they can find you. Website, Facebook. What are you on?
Um, Basically just my website. It's samanthaknock.com, all one word, SAMANTHAKNOCK.com. And
Perfect.
my email is s period c period knock at gmail.com. And then that's also on my website. Yeah, and you can just reach out to me with whatever you need. On my website, I just have a few different samples because I basically I'm interested in everything. I don't want to be in one particular niche, so basically anything that you need, if I haven't done it, then I would be happy to do it. But in all likelihood, I have done something that you need.
Yeah. Well,
If that
Perfect.
clearly
makes
we can
sense.
tell. Yeah, Murray, clearly we can tell that you're definitely an expert just in the couple of minutes of talking with us. And I am definitely coming into this, as you mentioned it, when you see some people do their own websites. I'm a huge advocate. If you're going to start your own business, there's going to be some things that you should definitely hire an expert to do. Give you an example. Well, several years ago, I thought it was going to be this fun idea to put a lift kit on a Jeep because it said you could do it in like 4 hours. It took me 4 months, and I could have just paid $600 to have a professional mechanic do it. So clearly, if this is something that's important for your business, call Samantha. If you're watching this on YouTube, we have her information down below in the description down there, Murray, somewhere. So, okay, your turn, Murray.
All right. Let's hear it.
All right. So, your website, I was, first of all, kind of like, well, what is full volume solutions? It's not very clear initially. I think that was like kind of the biggest thing that I noticed right away. And then, so it was through kind of looking through the website and being a little bit familiar with the space that I was able to figure out, oh, he's creating operating solutions for businesses, but I still wasn't clear on what it quite is that you offer. So from the Polite Pup page, I gathered that it was some kind of software, right? That
Yep.
somebody could use to help run their business. So, I mean, I think just something so simple as saying that would help a lot. we create software solutions for businesses to help them operate. I would also make the Paul Light Pup page longer, and I would make your homepage full volume solutions longer. Just explain everything, uh, who you are, what is it that you do exactly, and then once you explain what full volume solutions is, then at the bottom you can say, here's one of our solutions that we've come up with so far, and you go to the Paul Light Pup page. And then on that page, once again, you could do more to tell the story for the people who are looking for that product, because it sounds like a great product that most dog trainers would love to have. Um, because I do know from, my experience with my friends and whoever getting dog training, they're like, "Oh, the training didn't work because I didn't work on it." So I know that this is a common problem in the area, and I know also that a small business owner, if they get one or two bad reviews, it can kind of tank them, because in a Google result, it'll be like, oh, that person has 2 stars. I don't want to deal with them. They won't even ask for more information. So I think you could hit that pain point a little bit harder and say, this is saving your business from bad reviews because it's creating this kind of double accountability. And then having on your page, like Erik has on his, some testimonials from dog trainer clients who have used the software and also from their clients who have used it as well. Because I'm sure not only is it good for the dog trainers who are paying for the product, it's good for their clients, right?
Yeah.
Because they're benefiting from the organization and the accountability also, and it's helping their dogs stay on track.
Yeah, all that's very fair. And that's kind of the mindset I was at where I just went out there, I threw something up and I was like, okay, now I have something to mold. And just knowing that what I got into, the way I got into it, it was more of the mastermind set was more of like, don't necessarily say no to anything, but at the same time, it's hard to market that you're offering the world. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put a placeholder out there and then figure out how I narrow down the story. And Paul Light Pup was the first software that I created. So I was like, okay, now I can really try and hone in there. So that's why I created the separate page. But everything you said is exactly what I've been looking to try and do. And now that I've got some guidance and the book you mentioned and just trying to fine tune it, and it's everything you said makes perfect sense though. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. No problem. Glad it makes sense.
So for someone like Murray, and Murray's gonna think I'm joking, but it's in all seriousness, is for a business like Murray, and you can probably already tell just from meeting Murray, he's kind of like a larger than life person. Like when Murray comes to the party, everybody, it's like Bruce Wayne just walked in. They all want to go see and hang out with Murray. Everyone says, "Is Murray coming over tonight?" Is just does someone like Murray still stick with that guide theme, or maybe focus a little bit more um, on his particular aspects since he's got some sort of gift where everyone wants to hang out with him all the time?
Well, I do think, yeah, I mean, still, he just wants to position himself as the guide, especially because both of you are in a business to business selling place. You're not selling yourself to on the ground clients. You're selling yourself like Erik to the chiefs of departments and Murray to business owners. You're not really going after the everyday person. So you're really going after somebody who is independent on their own. They have their own business that they want to make better, and they want somebody to help them make their business better.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let me ask you one quick question. I forget stuff really easy, and this one's been in my mind. I noticed in trying to prepare for this episode, kind of what do people search for when they're trying to figure out like copywriting? And the stuff that comes up is like how to learn copywriting, copywriting for beginners, how to get started in copywriting. But I can already tell from you if it's something you want to learn, then you really shouldn't be looking at that stuff. You should be looking at how to tell a story. It sounds like that seems to be the big thing that you're focusing on here, right?
That's true. Yeah, there's definitely a ton of articles. It's a glut of resources right now. I think, especially during the pandemic, a lot of people were thinking, well, I want to work from home. Copywriting is a job that you can do from home. So I think it would be easy to get overwhelmed by the resources. If you were looking for something reliable, I would actually probably go to YouTube and see from marketing conferences the copywriters who have the most views on their videos because those are going to be the ones that really have their finger on the pulse, and they're the ones who are successful because they're the
Sure.
people being invited to speak at conferences and stuff like that,
Hmm.
instead of some random person who's just trying to write 10 tips for copywriting so they can up their SEO ranking.
Right. Yeah, that
So,
makes sense.
so clearly words are very important. How important are visuals and colors? Does that come into play at all with copywriting?
So that is more in design, but as a copywriter and especially as a marketing copywriter, I mean, all copywriters, I guess, work in marketing one way or the other, but as somebody who has worked on website design and stuff like that, I think it's crucial to have images. It is the kind of thing that makes people smile or feel a kind of way. Like I was thinking for Paw Light Pup, if you had like some images of a dog training session, with a cute dog in there, that just gives people a little boost. They
Uh,
immediately feel a little
Everyone
bit
loves a
better.
puppy. Yeah.
Everyone loves a puppy. Yeah. And I think, you know, Eric, you do a great job of that on your website. There's lots of pictures, there's lots of resources. And actually, that's another thing that Eric, you do super well is having those videos, having those kind of free resources for somebody to look to. So you're already providing them value before they even, really get into the nitty gritty of what you're offering.
Awesome.
Um, and I think that was something I was thinking also for you, Murray, is you have your contact form, but you don't really say for what. So if you say, you could even use this podcast, just I'm writing blog posts about entrepreneurship. I'm sending them out. If you don't want them, you can unsubscribe. But if you want them, here you are. You can subscribe here. And you're providing them something. And that's a place actually where, as Eric said, your personality could shine through. If you're truly the coolest guy that everybody wants to hang out with, then they
Surely
will
is.
like hearing from you. You know what I mean? And it will
Okay.
just make
Yeah.
them feel warmer
Yeah. It
already.
makes them
Murray,
feel a
you
little
could
more
totally
connected
do
and tell a story.
Yeah,
Murray, you could
exactly.
you could do what Jose Canseco did a few years ago, where you could charge people like $500 a day, and they could come hang out with you and like take you to a party with them. I don't know how you
Uh,
haven't thought of that already.
Only if it's in the dark cave room.
yeah.
Yes.
We did have technical difficulties tonight, so I swear it's normally lit up better than this, and it's just my original camera wasn't working. So,
Murray,
but
this is the dumpster fire project. We always have technical
I know
difficulties on this.
we called it out in the name.
So
You
how
did.
about that, Samantha? How about that? What can we do, maybe to help? Because we're going into year two of the podcast. The first few episodes, like you would expect, it was low, and then we started to slowly. We knew this would be a long thing. We didn't. I mean, the original idea of the podcast was just like for us to hold each other accountable. And we thought it'd be fun to do a podcast, and now it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's starting to. It's just real slow growth. Is there anything that we could do to help promote the podcast in social media, as far as what we say about it or on our website? Any advice on how we can grow this thing?
Well, are you guys open to buying ad space?
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've done some limited experiments with it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
would
we've
say
talked about it.
that, yeah, that would be my biggest advice. And it's pretty easy. And like I mentioned to you, it can be fairly cheap. I spend $2 a day on my Google ads. I basically set them and forget them. Um, and I get, people reaching out to me, which is great because then I just kind of don't have to worry about it too much.
Hmm.
So I would recommend doing that. It's really not too hard to figure out how to set up Google Ads. And once you do, and once you get them all approved, they kind of go. When you're promoting on social media, once again, I would just recommend thinking about your audience. Who are you trying to tell this story to?
Hmm.
How do you want to be relating to them? This podcast is in a different position than your business is because this podcast, you're selling yourselves as somebody who's on the hero's journey with people. So you are the heroes in this story of this podcast,
All right.
but you're the heroes turning to experts.
Yeah,
So
we're not very good. So,
no, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's a really good way to put it because you guys are trying, you're doing something, you're holding each other accountable. That's why you started the podcast. And that's what people need, If somebody wants to start a business, it's really, really hard,
yeah,
especially because, if you have a day job, like I still have a day job along with the freelance that I do, and it's hard to say, okay, today I'm going to get done with my regular job and then I'm going to
yeah,
spend 3 hours trying to build my business. It's really hard
yeah,
unless you have somebody holding you accountable or some driving force. And I think trying to get people more with that of we're all in this together and the kind of humor that you guys have, the good vibes, you know, I would say do that in your social media posts, which I think you are already. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to make a podcast go viral.
well, obviously we don't either.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah,
Maybe this will do it. Maybe
I mean,
you're gonna get us there, Samantha. I can feel it.
maybe.
It's gonna
Well,
be our best
oh,
episode.
that's what I was also going to say. It's definitely like cross promotion. Like, I will, once everything is all done, said and done with this, like, I will be linking to the podcast from my website because this is good for me, for my clients to see me
Hmm.
talking and hear me talking because they don't have that. They just have my written words.
Sure.
Um, so if you do, I guess more more episodes with marketers
Yeah.
who will be cross promoting on their
Good
platforms.
point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we noticed that you typically when we do someone that has a big presence on social media, that episode will get a huge bump. We did one with a coffee shop owner, and like three people within a couple of days reached out to us wanting to come on here because it hit like 300-400 people in a couple of days. So yeah, that's definitely the one thing we've learned for sure that helps.
nice.
But Murray's cheap. You don't want to spend any money on anything. I mean, look at his lighting back
What?
there. I gotta talk this guy into Google Ads here.
Well,
Uh,
let's have
Start
a
charging people to
conversation
hang out
about
with
how
you.
far in the red you are, Eric.
oh,
Too much
Oh, we're
equipment.
letting it all out
oh,
today. Here we
we're
go. All
we're
right.
getting real, getting real
Yeah,
on the dumpster fire.
that's right.
Yeah.
We keep it. We don't hide anything here.
Well,
So,
there it
so
is. I mean, use that clip to promote this episode, and I bet
there you
people
go.
will be like, "What are they talking
I know.
about?"
Yeah.
That's funny.
If these guys can do it, anybody can.
Yeah. So
Well, that's great,
is
Samantha.
speaking of
Go
ads
ahead,
and
Murray.
yeah, so speaking of ads, is copywriting I guess a skill that goes in trends where you have to constantly be monitoring, and are there words that are or catchphrases that people catch on to more in certain times for whatever reason, or is it just I don't know, is it just kind of one set of golden rules about telling that story and just go from there?
Yeah, there are definitely words and catchphrases. We can think of this last year, an abundance of caution and extraordinary times. I mean, those were everywhere. But then you do get the thing of oversaturation where it's like, I heard an abundance of caution a million billion times.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, that feels like to me making sure I have some hand sanitizer with me. That's my abundance of
Yeah.
caution. Um,
The new normal.
the new normal.
The new normal sucks. I want to go back to the old normal.
I know. I mean, that's definitely something to consider right now too, is that I don't know and that nobody really knows. What is the new normal going to be? I'm
Yeah.
not sure. So we have to market ourselves and tell our stories right now. Yes,
Hmm.
but there are
Hmm.
definitely some definitely I think the overall structure of your story should be pretty set. If you're talking about something like the pandemic in your business, which for both of you, it's applicable because it's remote.
Yeah.
You don't need face to face, and it can help people, avoid or not avoid, help people build businesses without necessarily a face to face interaction. And you could, and I would recommend explaining why that would be evergreen, explaining why having a platform to avoid FaceTime with somebody is going to be useful even after the new normal, whenever it begins. Because, we all hear that people are not going back to the office. They're going to be working from home forever. There are a bunch of things in the new normal that we don't know what they're going to be yet. Um, So yes, trying to stay relevant, but also trying to think of why it's going to be a lasting solution rather than a solution for right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Murray, we promised everybody we're going to keep these episodes under 30 minutes, and we're already there.
Yep. Time flies when you're having fun.
Sure does.
Samantha, one more time, because we can't. This has been one of I probably have learned the most during this episode, Murray. I think we might be onto something here. You definitely gave us some homework. So if I understand you, we're going to read this book, and then we're going to work on our websites a little bit. We'll do an update when we do our next episode, and maybe we'll send you an email so you can check it out. And we can shout out what grade you give us based on our homework for the next episode. But I'll tell you what, folks, if you need something done and just even having, I'm sure you have like consulting things that you do, call Samantha. This has been a wealth of knowledge for me, Murray, and I came to this not knowing anything. So I actually feel pretty excited tonight, Murray. How you feeling?
Yeah, I do too. And Samantha, I can't thank you enough. You took a chance on us. It was a little bit of a cold email that I threw out there. You looked like you had a great portfolio and you were just willing to come on here. So, again, can't thank you enough. Listeners, watchers, please, if you need any kind of copywriting, go check out Samantha.
One more
Thank you
time,
guys.
where can we find you at? Just to make sure we get it in there.
SamanthaKnock.com. That's the
Perfect.
website. Yep.
All right, everybody, check it out. Murray, season 2, episode 1 in the books. Thanks, everybody. Hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.